Hey songwriters, welcome to Home Songwriting. Today I wanted to talk about 17 things I learned while watching the Kenny G documentary. It just came out on HBOMax, and I really didn't know a whole lot about Kenny G, but I thought here I'm gonna watch it and see what I learn about him and his music. I've been familiar with his music ever since I was a kid, but I really didn't know much about him. He was kind of an enigma in some ways, but such a cool documentary. I wanted to share some of the things that I learned while watching it because there's a lot of great inspirational stuff for songwriters and musicians in general. So if you have a chance to watch it on HBO Max. And this is not a paid promotion. I have nothing to do. I'm not connected with it at all, but I learned a lot of things that I thought would help you guys as songwriters and musicians to really get inspired and write some more songs. So let's go. The first thing I learned is make music that you love. There's going to be critics out there that tear it down. They're going to critique you. They're going to give you bad reviews. They're not going to like what you're doing. But the key here is if you like what you're doing and you make music that you love, there's going to be an audience for it. The next thing I learned was from a scene where Kenny was autographing his past high school's wall. And he wrote, "Go for what you love and practice, practice, practice." So again, there's a theme here. Do what you love and practice, practice, practice. The next thing that I really picked up from Kenny is you can have influences and people that you look up to, but you should really aim for having your own sound and developing your own thing. So don't just try to copy what other people have done. Try to find your niche. And again, make music that really moves you. And if it moves you, it's going to move other people as well. The fourth thing I learned was really about the recording process that Kenny uses. So I found that Kenny uses a recording process more similar to recording vocals than recording instruments. So the moral of the story here is to record the way that you record and the way that captures what you do. Definitely watch the documentary so you can see what I mean, because Kenny will punch in and record different parts of his sax part, just like a vocalist may punch in and correct different words. It was so unique and so interesting to watch this happen. The fifth thing I learned comes back to the theme again, and Kenny says, make music that touches your own heart. Number 6, they asked Kenny to describe his own music, and he really didn't have a way to describe it. He just says it's his own. And we'll talk about this later in something else that I learned, but it was interesting to hear him not really label what he does because he just does what he feels is the right thing. And I think that's something that all of us as musicians and songwriters can really learn from. Another thing that struck me, and I think it will strike you as well, is Kenny really didn't have huge success until multiple albums into his career. So it took like 4 albums before he started to really see some more widespread success. So I think as songwriters and musicians, we have to give ourselves the ability to develop as artists and to develop our craft. So if it doesn't take off after you release your single or your album, or maybe you do a music video, you have to keep going. And number 8 really says this. It says, believe in yourself and take risks. You really need to believe that what you're doing has importance and it's something that you love. And the key here is do things that you love and write in the styles that you love, because then it will be fun. It won't be like work, and you won't be worried if people don't like it. Because again, if you love it, someone out there is going to love it as well. This really stood out to me as well. So Kenny says that he's really good about details, putting in work, doing the reps, and then reaping the rewards that come with the hard work. And that is how he really disciplines himself and really pushes himself to practice. Even though he's one of the best in the industry, he still practices on a daily basis, and he really just wants to do things well. And I think that's a great goal for all of us, is to be like, it doesn't matter the result. We just want to be the best at what we do. Number 10, Kenny's actually a really smart guy, and I learned that he was one of the 10 original investors in Starbucks. Number 11, even if you're really good, you still need to practice every day. I think one thing that you see throughout the entire documentary is that Kenny is almost always practicing. And he even says that he instills this drive and this discipline into his son's life as well. And if you look at Kenny, he's like 65 years old, and the dude is in great shape. You can tell that he eats well and he keeps working on himself. And I think this is something that all of us can learn from in our songwriting, but also our personal lives as well. I thought number 12 out of the things that I learned was really interesting because this is directly related to songwriting. And what I learned from Kenny is that he starts with a melody. He plays around while he's practicing and he starts to come up with something that really sticks with him and sounds like it can become something. So he makes the melody first, and then he actually needs to bring in other people to help him harmonize it and bring in the chords and the other instrumentation. Now, he said he's very picky on how they do that, so he drives that process. But what's interesting is his songs start with a melody, and I think we've talked about this on the channel before on how important melody is, regardless of the genre of music that you make, because melody is made up of rhythm and pitches, and that's what really initially catches your listener. And if you want to stay up to date on other songwriting techniques, be sure to hit subscribe. This would be a good time to do it. Number 13 talks about what I learned, and from Kenny's point of view, he's not worried about what he thinks is going to be popular or what's going to impress people or what people are going to like. He goes with what sounds good. He, again, goes by his own musical taste, his own musical gut. He wants to make sure that he's releasing the best music and writing the best songs that he can. So it's really about focusing on what you believe in and what is good. Make sure you focus on the good stuff, not just trying to fit someone else's expectations. Number 14 is let your audience decide what your style is. On one of the interview scenes that they asked Kenny, they said, well, how would you describe your music? And he was like, I don't know. Like, how do you describe it? And the answer was sexy. So he's like, okay, my music's sexy. But to someone else, it might be romantic. It might be jazzy to someone else. So that's an interesting concept. Sometimes we as artists don't necessarily know how our audience is really relating with our music or how they see us. It would be really cool to ask them, but let your audience decide how they live with your music. I thought that was really cool. Number 15, in the Kenny G documentary, they actually talked about how the whole genre of smooth jazz may not exist without Kenny G, because his music was kind of the catalyst of radio stations deciding to look at this as a format and a genre. So this is a really interesting part in the documentary that I think a lot of songwriters and musicians will get a kick out of. Number 16 is directly related to some of the things that we go through as songwriters and as musicians. And it's hard to live, but it's easy to say. But really, there's going to be people who love you, and there's going to be people that hate you. So you kind of have to be you, because no matter what, you're never going to please everybody. And I know it's easier said than done, but just keep in mind that there's so many people that will dig what you're doing and so many people that won't. It doesn't matter. The people that matter are you being yourself, and then the people who like it will find it and you'll be able to connect with them. Number 17 is a great tip and great information that I took from the Kenny G documentary, and this is really important for songwriters like you. The thing that I learned and what Kenny says is if you can communicate to your listeners and you can get your point across and you can make them feel something and you sort of have this artist-listener dialogue, you are successful. And I think that's such a great thing to remember as you're writing songs and making your music, is that it's not about what accomplishments you get with it, because the real accomplishment is, can you communicate something to your listener? And what I want to focus on here at Home Songwriting is to help you figure out ways that you can use the tools of the craft to communicate with your listener. communicate emotions to them, make them feel something in your music, and really connect with you as a musician and as a songwriter. So thanks for checking out this video. I'm Chad Shank. Check out the description below. There's a link to our online live workshops, and we've got more songwriting techniques, tips, and just goodies coming up here at Home Songwriting. So thanks so much. We'll see you next time.